Hey, welcome back to the Soul Pod. This is Stacy. Today I want to talk about a topic that's going to serve everybody in the world better. If we could make this shift tomorrow, we could totally change the world. Absolutely. And I say that without any reservation of thought or belief. I absolutely believe that's true. F. Scott Fitzgerald said the test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function. There's something wonderful and powerful about being able to hold more than one thought, especially politically lately, to be able to at least consider that there might be more to the story than you realize. So let's dive into that and talk about the lost art of disagreement. You see, historically, disagreement and debate, like historically, if you look at historic America, and really the Western world in general, disagreement has always been the cornerstone of intellectual and societal progress. I mean, the 1700s, 1800s, the Age of Enlightenment, all this, that came from people sitting and talking about their differences of opinion, not to win or to, dunk on each other or whatever, but to really look at an idea from all angles, because we don't see all angles. We have our blinders on, and we only can see those when we start to bring in someone else's thoughts as well. This is one of the beautiful things about being in a marriage. If you're with somebody who you could have discussions with, where you look at things differently, you get an extra brain to work with. You see, the other person brings in this other perspective, and sometimes they enlighten you, and sometimes you enlighten them. But oftentimes we get so stuck in our linear way of looking at stuff that we don't see down the alleyways, and we miss so much. So we've lost that. Like I said, the historical side of it was that, debate and disagreement and examining those things is where the growth came from, where we can make changes and move forward knowing more than we did before. Well, what happened? We lost it. Now disagreement's often weaponized. We use it to we avoid it out of fear of conflict, out of fear of cancellation, out of getting piled on in social media. There's this fear around openly speaking your mind, and so we don't. So am I suggesting that you just go out and tell everyone that they're wrong, that you're right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as a society, we need to learn to have discussions where we differ and examine our differences without looking to score, without one-upping, without winning. The problem nowadays is that we've gotten into this new thing where there's just winners and losers, and nobody wants to be on the losing side. So oftentimes when we get into a discussion where we differ with somebody, what happens is we end up having conversations where we're trying to figure out how to win, not how to learn, how to win. It's odd to think that, from the 1800s and even earlier, that they were better at talking about differences than we are now in this modern world. Why is that? You see, there's been a decline in civility. Civility itself is a cultural shift towards more of a performative outrage and righteousness. We have these echo chambers of thought where you surround yourself with a tribe of people who think the same as you, and then you start to believe that you're right and all your friends are right because you all agree. But that's because you've completely shut out anybody else who disagrees. We're all guilty of this. This is a human nature thing, apparently. The problem is it's a beast that when you feed it, it only grows bigger and it becomes more ignorant. The problem with this tribalism that's happened, where we got to pick sides, is, and we don't got to pick sides, we choose to pick sides, is that it really becomes sort of a tribalism thing, like where we lock out the possibility of growing, of expanding. We This leads to a loss of empathy. Where we've seen this played out again and again recently in history. If you're watching this in 2025, late 2025, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Where the political murders that have been happening, where people seem heartless about it because of a tribal mentality. That's all it is. It's not that these people are horrible people. It's that their tribal mentality has convinced them that everyone that they hang out with thinks a particular way and that's the way to think, and that there's anybody that thinks other than that is wrong. So the empathy is gone because of tribalism. It degrades our empathy. And empathy is one of the beautiful things that makes us amazing as people. We don't know that there's any other species on the planet that has the ability to feel empathy. There are some suggestions that there are some animals that do, but it's not obvious. We do though. But sadly, we also have the ability to turn it off, sometimes without even thinking. So there's a loss of civility. But so what? So there's a loss of civility. The problem is that there's a price to pay when we have a loss of civility. We have fractured communities, fractured relationships. Think of how many folks that you used to be close to that maybe you're not as close to. Family members, friends, coworkers, folks you know socially who you know think different than you, where you just shut it down because you don't want to risk getting into an argument about some heated topic. Or maybe even you judge them as being less than you thought of them before because they think different than you. This is a loss of civility. And the loss of civility keeps us from having those open-ended discussions, those beautiful conversations, the lost art of disagreement. And then there's stagnation of ideas due to expressing, dissenting views. That stagnation of ideas happens because we stop being bold enough to say, hey, let's talk about our differences. I'm going to follow this video with another one where I go much deeper into how to do this. So I'm not going to tell you, hey, you should do this thing that's really hard without giving you some ammunition. The next video will talk about how to go about doing that. It takes work. It's no magic pill. It's no, hey, here's this cool trick. It's not a hack. It's practice. So we have this stagnation of ideas, this stagnation of beautiful ideas growing because we're not having these beautiful discussions. And one of the downstream effects of that is that it has a mental health impact. There's anxiety is growing massively. A sense of isolation is growing. Mistrust of institutions and individuals. This is all happening because our worldview is getting flipped in many ways. Where, when one moment you think your uncle is a brilliant, intelligent, great guy, and the next moment he says something that you deeply disagree with, and so you shut him out. That's going to create an isolation. That's going to create division. That's going to create depression even if we don't feel it right away. That's what's going on. There are a lot of downstream effects that are negative by losing our ability to disagree, at least lovingly, caringly, and with a little bit of empathy. So as I said, I'm going to do another video after this where I talk more about this. But there are things you can do. There's really a path forward to rediscovering and rebuilding civil discourse. And there's a lot that goes into it. We have to rediscover empathy. We have to rediscover active listening, humility, creating spaces where we can have conversations like this. And this takes intention, like to actually create a space to have these discussions. It takes conversation to get there. So you have to have a conversation to get to the conversation, which for a lot of people is way more of a bridge than they're willing to build because it takes so much effort. It's easier to be lazy than it is to be civil. Some practical tools you can use are things like actively listening, asking questions. That's another good one. Seeking common ground. And again, we'll dive into some of those on the next video. But when you embrace curiosity over judgment, when you ask questions, like this is one trick that I'll just leave you with now. When you know that you're about to have a conversation with someone who thinks different than you and it's becoming obvious that you both know, instead of letting yourself get triggered, ask 3 questions. First of all, just admit that you think different, in a kind way. Wow, okay, we think a little different on this. I'd love to get your take on it, right? Now it's open-ended. You say, how did you come to that decision on that? What information did you take in to get there? I'm curious how we ended up in different spaces. See? That's very different than saying, oh, you're wrong, I'm right. It's very open. It's like leading with your arms open versus with your arms folded. That's what it's going to take. And if we all start doing this, if some of us start doing this, even a small percentage, 5% more people, it's going to change the world. It's going to definitely change your life. It's going to change your depression levels, your anxiety levels, your sense of being alienated from people you care about levels. All these things, they can all be affected by this. Just learning how to disagree lovingly. I appreciate you guys being here. I hope this has been useful. If it has, and you have other advice, other tips, other tricks, or pain points for that matter, things that haven't worked, the things that you're struggling with now because of this lost art of disagreement that you want to talk about, leave me a note. Leave something in the show notes below, a comment, not just for me, for the whole community. Everybody benefits when you leave a comment, and I read all the comments. Thanks for being here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that. If you haven't checked out the Soul Podcast yet, you might like it. Give it a shot. Appreciate you guys being here. I'll see you on the next video.